All right, good morning. My name is Michael Zullo. I am the lead investigator on the eligibility issue that's been undertaken by Sheriff Joe Arpaio of Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, Phoenix, Arizona. I'm going to give you a little background first, and we only have an hour. Just to put this in perspective for you right now, I'm also accompanied by Don Jeffrey, retired New Jersey police officer, investigator, who is working on another aspect of this. And as it stands right now, just our interim report, which is a very limited investigational report, is tipping at 325 pages, and Don's work is probably going to add another 80 pages. Turn it up. Is that better? Is that working? Let's see, that better? Yeah. Okay. So we're anticipating when we're done, we're probably going to be close to 700 pages of an actual investigative report. That's a lot of work. That's because this birth certificate is like the perfect crime scene. All your evidence is right there, and it's like the gift that keeps on giving. You just have to keep digging for it. For you guys that want to cut out early, I can tell you that document is fake. I can tell you that what was presented to the American people is nothing. What I've done here is to try to take the most comprehensive parts of this that I can release to the public, put it into, I think it's about a 20-minute video presentation. Then I'm going to play a little video clip for you to briefly explain his selective service dog. That's another mystery. And then at that point, I'll address some points, and then I want to take some questions, because I know everybody's got questions, and I'll try to explain to you where we want to go with this further. We are in the 21st month of doing this. When Sheriff Arpaio received this, it was from the request of the Surprise Tea Party in Arizona. The sheriff was petitioned with 250 signatures, and people were very concerned that their voting rights were going to be infringed because of the production of this document. This document was released, and the video will explain a little of that. This document was released prior to the 2012 election cycle. And it was also released, I think, days before a book was going to come out by Jerome Corsi, Where's the Birth Certificate? It was a preemptive strike, if you ask me. The media shut this issue down 24 hours after the birth certificate was released. I have been in contact with prominent media people. I cannot and will not disclose their identities. That was the commitment I made because they fear for their jobs and some fear for their safety. There were threats made. There were people threatened with their occupation, losing their occupation, if they continued this. I can tell you personally, we were supposed to be on Hannity and we got cut. I know people out there, a lot of, for lack of a better word, the talking heads, want to cover it. I know there's people at Fox News that want to cover it and are being told not to. When Sheriff Arpaio announced publicly in March of 2012 that we had probable cause to believe this document was a forgery, the media blocked it out. And we know that they were monitoring it because MSNBC, Chris, the tingle up my leg guy, they called and wanted to talk with me after we made our announcement because nobody knew what that announcement was going to be. We didn't get a call back. So we know they watched it. It was streamed live over the internet, and it was also streamed from some television stations. And we also know the FBI watched it and anybody else. The fact of the matter is, though, when Sheriff Arpaio got this, my instructions were, Mike, clear the document. He goes, I don't think there's anything here. It's all this hoopla, He goes, this is bad for the country. He goes, and I know nobody's going to believe it. Those are his exact words. If you can clear the president, I want to say we cleared him, and let's move the country forward. We have better things to talk about. So I took the assignment, made some contacts that were given to me. In about, I think, 24, 48 hours later, I called the sheriff. I said, we may have a problem with this. There might really be something here. I scheduled a 16-hour, 2-day interview with Dr. Jerome Corsi. Dr. Corsi was the author of the book that was to be released, and he had a lot of investigational information. And it's something that Jerry and I kind of joke about to today. I didn't know Jerry Corsi from Adam. He was an author. He was a reporter. My perspective, no offense guys, you're the enemy, because whatever I say you twist. And we were in this meeting, and Jerry is showing me a lot of things in this document that he came across, and 14 hours into it, I basically told him I didn't believe anything. I think you were just sitting here trying to write another book, and you're going to use my sheriff's name to sell more books. Right around that time, he showed me the most incriminating thing on this document, and it made my bells and whistles go off. And you'll see it here. And it's the registrar's stamp from the state of Hawaii. The registrar's stamp has to be applied to this document in order to give it its legal weight, its legal authority, and its authenticity. And it's the stamp that says, we certify this, that this is a true and accurate copy. You'll see, it will be demonstrated in this video, how that stamp has been imported into this document from an unknown source, in other words, another birth certificate, comes in vertical, is rotated 90 degrees, and placed in this document to give the appearance of authenticity. There is not a known law anywhere in this country that I could find at this point that says you can certify a document in this fashion. The fact is you can't. The truth about this PDF, this birth certificate, is you can't bring it into a court of law. The truth is it cannot survive judicial scrutiny on any level. This document needs to be adjudicated in a fashion where the document gets declared null and void. If the document is declared null and void, he's produced nothing. You couldn't take this, you couldn't take your birth certificate, scan it into a computer, and have somebody tell you, oh, okay guys, what's happening? Okay. Have somebody tell you, okay, I'll accept this. Just not going to happen. We good?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought the voices were talking to me in my head. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put this video on. It's going to be self-explanatory. There is one section of this video that I'm going to ask Don to step in front of the monitor. It compares birth certificates, and it has people's information on it, and it cannot release it. So for about 1 minute or so, Don will pose for us in front of the monitor, and let that go by. But I will leave the audio on, so you guys can hear it. All right, so sit back, enjoy it.
Almost immediately after the release of his birth certificate, thousands of experts took to the internet to point out reasons that the birth certificate couldn't possibly have been made by merely scanning a document into a computer the way the White House had claimed. The long-form birth certificate posted at whitehouse.gov by Barack Obama contains many discrepancies that provide overwhelming evidence of fraudulent manipulation. The document can be separated into 9 layers. The registrar's stamp was imported from an outside source and may be moved about the document at will. The same is true for the date stamps on the document. There is incorrect terminology on the document that was not in use in 1961. There is evidence that multiple typewriters were used to create this document. There is uneven noise distribution throughout the document. There is a clipping mask hiding information on this document, a clipping mask that had to have been set by a human. The information behind the clipping mask does not show up on a photo taken of the document by Savannah Guthrie of NBC News just before the document was scanned into a computer. There is an eerie white halo effect throughout the document that shouldn't be there. The former director of the Hawaiian Department of Health, Dr. Kayomi Fukino, gave a description of the document just before it was released. She said that it was half written and half typed. The only problem is, when it was released, it wasn't half written and half typed. As if all this weren't enough, the number on the document is out of sequence with other births that took place at that time. Please note that layers 4, 5, 6, and 7 contain 1 hand stamp each and nothing more. It's as if the forger decided to create all the hand stamps in sequence for some reason. When we open the long-form birth certificate in Adobe Illustrator, at first we see 1 layer, which is exactly what we would expect to see. But then we notice 9 sublayers. You can virtually see how the document was built by the forger, one layer at a time, as we turn these layers on. Merely scanning a document into a computer does not create layers. These layers are not visible in Adobe Acrobat or Adobe Photoshop. They are only visible as sublayers in Adobe Illustrator. This suggests that the forger didn't intend for them to be discovered. Please note that the registrar's stamp was brought in from outside the document and was rotated 90 degrees. You will also note whenever we highlight the registrar's stamp, we are able to move it about the document at will. This is not something that would have happened from merely scanning a document into a computer. You will immediately note that just like with the registrar's stamp, the April 25th, 2011 date stamp may also be moved about the document at will and rotated. The 1961 date stamps appear to have been altered as well. Note how they can be moved around the document also. A close look at them suggests that perhaps they are from August 8th of some year, but not 1961. The term African has never been used to designate race, as people of many races are born in Africa.
Don, you want to step in front of that because I'm not going to let this go through.
In 1961, the term used to describe black people on a birth certificate was Negro. In order to document this, we obtained a copy of the 1960 Vital Statistics Instructions
Step back
Manual
1 second.
containing the instructions for coding race on a birth certificate that were followed by every health department in the United States, including the Hawaiian Health Department. As you can see, if a parent's race was reported as colored, black, brown, or Afro-American, the Department of Health clerk was required to consider the parent a Negro.
Okay, step again.
For those of you who may be wondering why the 1960 manual was consulted instead of the 1961 manual, it's because the 1961 manual wasn't published until 10 days after Barack Obama's birth and therefore was not applicable. The Maricopa County Sheriff's Office has obtained 2 birth certificates from African Americans born in Hawaii in 1961. You'll note that the race of the father in both cases was listed as Negro. According to Verna Lee, who actually signed Barack Obama's birth certificate, all long-form birth certificates were double-checked. If the first clerk made a mistake, it was the second clerk's job to correct it. The following is an example of what happens whenever a birth certificate has a mistake on it. The mistake is lined through and then corrected, usually by the second clerk. You can tell by looking at this birth certificate that a clerk caught a mistake in the parent's race.
Let me describe this for you. This is another birth certificate that I cannot release to the general public. This birth certificate was acquired in 1961. It resided in a man's wallet for 50 years, and it looks like it. It's actually almost in 2 pieces. He was an African American when he obviously was born. What the clerk originally did, and the way these birth certificates were processed, a handwritten copy of the information, when we're believing that it was almost like a white template of a birth certificate, was filled out by nurses at the time of birth. They were then given to clerks in the hospital 2 floors down, and they would type out this information, turning it into a typewritten birth certificate that you see, and then send it back upstairs for doctors and parents' signatures. On the birth certificate that I'm describing to you, the first clerk who typed this up wrote for the race identifier colored. That was an inappropriate term. The term needed to be Negroes, according to the 1961 Vital Statistics Manual. Second set of eyes caught this, and they struck through the word colored with a typewriter line, and then they wrote typed in the word Negro. That's what appears on this document. In addition, the city was misspelled where the mother resides, and that same process happened there. They struck it and they corrected it. Berta K. Lee is a 90, I believe she was 90 or 92-year-old woman that we did contact. She was actually the registrar that processed these birth certificates at that time. And she described the process to us, including the numbering, the second set of eyes for accuracy. Any corrections had to either be made at the Department of Health in Hawaii, or they sent it back to the hospital for a correction. So we know corrections took place. This is an authentic document. If you saw this document, it's 50 years old. There's just no debating this. The birth certificate, the second one that we have, Negro is the race identifier. This video, I think, is going to tell you, too, that African or African American didn't come into vogue until 1980, 79 or 80. There's just no way for this thing to be that. Hang on, just don't.
It was originally incorrectly reported as colored. A line was drawn through the term colored, and the correct term of Negro was placed in the appropriate space. There is one thing of which we are very certain. The forger obviously had no experience using a typewriter, perhaps because of their age. They did not understand the concept of a left margin, did not grasp the concept of setting up tabs, did not understand that as a mechanical device, a typewriter would have fixed spacing. They furthermore did not understand that typewriters in 1961 would have had only one letter style. They also seemed ignorant of the fact that typewriters contained unique identifiable characteristics and that mixing letters originally typed on different typewriters would be readily detected. Compare the left margin of Barack Obama's long-form birth certificate with three others from 1961 and one from 1962.
Back up a second. Okay, see all those lines? Okay, now step in front of it so they can't see me.
You'll undoubtedly notice that
What I'm afraid of is this is being recorded, and this is also being live streamed, and I don't want a camera zooming in trying to get the identification on his birth certificates. This will be the last time he's got to do this.
unlike Obama's long-form birth certificate, the others show obvious signs of tabs being set up.
Okay. For those of you who couldn't see, what it is the tabs are set up and they're left or right justified on a typewriter. And on Obama's, it looks like a zigzag snake. That is not a characteristic we've seen with dozens of birth certificates that we've examined from the state of Hawaii in varying years. From 1955, before it was even a state, to present time. The tabs are all lined up. So whoever placed this information on this certificate didn't have this concept. And you know, it's one of these things that's going to be very difficult for somebody to explain. The thing that they will use to try to get away from all of this is nothing more than just the element of doubt. They'll just try to create doubt to explain it away. So what we've done is we've collected, I think we've got almost 20 or 25 birth certificates that all are left and right justified perfectly. That's the way they're supposed to look. So it's just another element to this. And this is almost like building a circumstantial case in a way. You do, lack of a better way to say it, layer upon layer. You just start building layer upon layer, discrepancy on top of discrepancy.
Here are just a few examples of letters found in different shapes and sizes on Barack Obama's long-form birth certificate. If the document were typed with a single typewriter as it should have been, this would be impossible. As we said before, the document is literally filled with signs of human tampering. You'll recall that when a paper document is scanned into a computer, we typically see an even level of noise throughout the document. So, does the PDF file released by the White House pass this test? No, it does not. As you can see as we scroll down the document, noise is not evenly distributed as it should be. Barack Obama's long-form birth certificate posted at whitehouse.gov has a clipping mask on it that hides information. A clipping mask that hides information must be set by a human to do so and is proof of human manipulation of a document. Savannah Guthrie of NBC News took a photograph of President Obama's certified long-form birth certificate just before it was scanned into a computer and turned into a PDF file that was posted at whitehouse.gov. The Guthrie photo is on the left. When you look at the PDF file posted at whitehouse.gov on the right, once the clipping mask has been removed, you see that it does not match the photograph that Savannah Guthrie took of the very same document just before it was scanned in.
Let me explain the significance of that, because that took me a little while to wrap my head around. What our computer experts were telling me is this clipping mask. If you mount a picture in a frame, you know those black borders you can put around where you cut out, Aunt Tilly because she's twice removed, and you kind of border her out, and then it's just you and your husband in the photograph. Nobody sees anything behind it. That's what that clipping mask does. That clipping mask can only be applied by human intervention. A man or a woman has to arrange the clipping mask and press a button to hide certain things. The significance with that, as far as the Savannah Guthrie photo and the AP photo of the birth certificate, is if Savannah Guthrie's photograph of a document, that particular now paper document, was in fact the original, she should have those two dots on the left side of that document that clipping mask was hiding. Because the clipping mask is a computer process. So in other words, Savannah Guthrie's copy should have been the parent of the PDF if it was in fact scanned. However, it's reversed. The parent of Savannah Guthrie's is in fact the PDF, the fraudulent document, which she claims she felt a raised seal. That raises a whole other question of who, what, where, when, and how did they apply this seal? Was that applied in Hawaii? Was that applied in Washington? Was that applied in some guy's basement? Was it even an Hawaiian seal? We don't know. But what we do know is that thing that Savannah Guthrie held is nothing more than a printout of the PDF. We literally took Barack Obama's PDF file. You can take off this green safety paper background. That green safety paper background, I'm going to have to step away from this mic. This background appears on layer 9 of this document. It is all by itself. You can actually turn it off and you get white background and black font for type. You literally can turn it on and off. That to me is incredibly important. Not only the fact that it helps my argument that it's been made, surreptitiously placed on there, but if you want to look for an intent to deceive, what does the unsuspecting public look for? Things that they recognize to say this is official. Green safety paper background, which by the way you can almost buy in any store today, but green safety paper background gives you the impression that this is official. This would also be the same kind of background that this would be printed on legally in the state of Hawaii. They manufactured it. They put it into the PDF. Another proof of construction. Just think about how simple this really would have been. If I took my driver's license and wanted to upload it to the internet because the world needed to see it for whatever reason, I could use my cell phone, I could use a digital camera, I'd take one picture of it, transfer it into a JPEG file, which by the way, folks, I didn't know what any of this was until this started. A JPEG file, and I could have it uploaded to the internet. What would it take, 32 seconds to do? And I'd be done. One flat image, no links, no layers, no moving things around. That's how simple it would take. This took intent, took planning, took an operation to secure, we believe, up to 3 different documents, and meticulously sit there and pull in information into their own separate layers, and then compile them onto what you think is a representation of a true and original copy. Who would do that? It defies common sense. Why would you do this? There's only 2 reasons to make a fictitious document. Either it didn't exist, or the information on the document needs to be changed for whatever reason to conceal something or to give the appearance that something belonged there. That's why this document in and of itself doesn't represent anything. The information, some of it may even be correct. That's not uncommon in a fictitious document to have some information of that document to be accurate or matching something else in a file. But that doesn't make it a legitimate document. And for the cops in here, those are felonies. I mean, those are felonies.
As we stated earlier, when examining the document, one immediately notices an eerie white halo effect that should not be on the document. The white halo effect could have been caused by over-sharpening the document to enhance it. It also could have been lifted off the background of the source document. Either of these is a logical explanation for where the white halo effect may have come from. But there's one thing we're certain of after 1,200 tests. The white halo effect is not caused by simply scanning a document into a computer. According to Michael Isakoff, an NBC reporter, he interviewed Dr. Kayomi Fukino, the former director of the Hawaiian Department of Health, via telephone on April 11, 2011, just 16 days before Barack Obama released the electronic image of his certified copy of his long-form birth certificate. According to Mr. Isakoff of NBC News, Dr. Fukino told him that she had found the original birth record properly numbered, half-typed and half-written, and signed by the doctor who delivered Obama, located in the files. Of course, when Barack Obama's certified copy was released on whitehouse.gov, it was not half-written and half-typed, as the former director of the Department of Health in Hawaii had said. Does this look half-written and half-typed to you? How could the former director have made such a mistake? Is it possible that the document changed between the time she looked at it and Barack Obama presented it to the world? As if all these other anomalies weren't already enough, the number assigned to Barack Obama's long-form birth certificate is inconsistent with the numbers assigned to other children who were born at around the same time. You'll note that Barack Obama was born 3 days before Susan and Gretchen Nordyke, yet he has a number that is higher than theirs. Some of the anomalies that we've pointed out today were first discovered by a certified document examiner named Reed Hayes. Mr. Hayes has over 20 years of experience in document examination. In 1994, he was certified by the American Board of Forensic Examiners. In 2001, he was certified by the National Association of Document Examiners. He's testified 26 times in various courtroom proceedings in Hawaii. In 2006, he authored a book entitled Forensic Handwriting Examination, a Definitive Guide. He's also the editor-in-chief of the National Association of Document Examiners Journal, and he's a board member of the Scientific Association of Forensic Examiners. Mr. Hayes' curriculum vitae is available upon request. Mr. Hayes' conclusion after examining Barack Obama's long-form birth certificate pretty much says it all. Mr. Hayes said that in over 20 years of examining documentation of various types, I have never seen a document that is so seriously questionable in so many respects. In my opinion, the birth certificate is entirely fabricated. Please.
Reed Hayes was, or is, a court-certified forensic document examiner. He was someone that I truly believe by divine intervention stepped in to this, because we had people trying to find a document examiner to look at this, some 212, and they refused because of the nature of what this was. Reed Hayes stepped up to the plate, skeptically, but stepped up to the plate. When I asked him to help us, he was reluctant like everybody else, and it's understandable. But after we talked, I asked him if he would just take a look at this for me and let me know if I'm even close. Because the one thing we wanted to make sure is we ran it through 1,200 tests. We had computer professionals. The term expert is bantered around, but for law enforcement purposes, court certified, recognized experts are the only thing that cut it. So I took this file, I sent it to Mr. Hayes, and in about 20 minutes he called me back and he goes, Mike, there's something seriously wrong with this. And I said, Reed, that's what I'm trying to tell you, and I don't know what happened here. So he went to work on it for us, and he was compensated to do it. That's his profession. That's what he does, and man deserves his wage. 40 pages later, that last line that he put in there, to me, that was a gift. Because Sheriff Arpaio and I have been touting this for over a year, that this thing is illegitimate, it's not real. And you've got a guy that testified in about 26 cases, wrote books. I mean, that's pretty impressive creds. And this guy's going to testify for us if it ever comes to that. The document is just fatally flawed. And as we go through this, we're going to start to understand where we are in this and the help we're looking to get. I am going to ask one thing. When I get to that part of this, I need the live stream down and I need the recorders off. Is that agreeable? Okay.
You said a word.
Okay, thank you.
Please watch as the three most common explanations for the anomalies in Barack Obama's long-form birth certificate are easily debunked. These explanations are optical character recognition software, adaptive compression, and mixed raster compression. A simple test debunked the OCR software theory. All one has to do is look inside the properties of the document and see if fonts are recognized, and then check to see if the text in the document is searchable and if it can be edited. The long-form birth certificate for Barack Obama flunked this test, and the theory of OCR software causing the anomalies is no longer supported. Furthermore, the document's 8 1-bit layers and 1 8-bit layer construction are inconsistent with adaptive compression and mixed raster compression. Therefore, neither of those theories can be used to explain the anomalies in President Obama's long-form birth certificate either.
Let me explain to you real brief what this is. This is all computer lingo. What's really supposed to happen if it was OCR, you get, the majority of them would be what's called 8-bit, and there would be one that would be 1-bit. This is reversed. And this is because somebody selected to do it in this fashion. And it's mind-numbing to understand what that means. But the compression factor is what's been thrown around by opponents of our investigation. And I'm going to tell you that there are groups out there that do nothing but try to conjure up doubt and defend this thing. And you really have to start to ask yourself, for 2 years of this going on with us, and this was going on 2 or 3 years even before us, and these people are still at it. Either you're unemployed for 5 years or you're getting paid by somebody to do this. And I'm telling you, the disinformation campaign that has been projected around this document is right out of the Saul Alinsky playbook. And it happens every day, every minute. As a matter of fact, I guarantee you servers will crash right after I'm finished here. So this is the first time they're learning, boys, we got a real certified expert. I challenge you to produce one. You haven't. I also challenge them, if you can show me how a one-button push of a computer program could do all that, come down to the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, come into our office, I will sit, I will watch it happen, and I will declare to the nation that we are wrong. Never happened. Why? Because it can't. There is not going to be a document examiner on the face of the planet that has any credibility to come against this work. Hawaii officials, this plot gets thick here. Pay close attention to what's said. We're going to highlight it for you, and you'll understand where we're going with this now.
Many of the supporters of Barack Obama admit that they have no explanation for the many anomalies in the long-form birth certificate that he posted at whitehouse.gov. But they're equally quick to state that 5 separate Hawaiian officials have said that the birth certificate Barack Obama showed the world back on April 27th of 2011 is authentic. Unfortunately, that's not exactly what they said. We're now going to take a close look at what each of these Hawaiian officials actually said regarding Barack Obama's birth certificate. Didn't Linda Lingle, the former governor of Hawaii and also a Republican, publicly state that Barack Obama's long-form birth certificate is legit? Actually, she did not. She said she sent her health director, that would have been Dr. Kaomi Fukino at the time, to look at the document, and that the document indeed showed Barack Obama was born in Hawaii at Kapiolani Hospital. She never saw the document herself, and she never stated whether or not the document posted at whitehouse.gov was legit. Dr. Kaomi Fukino said in October of 2008 that she had seen the original birth certificate. She didn't tell us what was on it, she just said she had seen it. In July of 2009, she changed her statement to, "I've seen the original vital records," not the birth certificate, the vital records, as in more than one. Now, just before the birth certificate was released, she said she had seen it and that it was half written and half typed. Let's take a look at the long-form birth certificate and see if it matches her description. Take a close look at the long-form birth certificate posted by Barack Obama at whitehouse.gov. Does it look half written and half typed to you? Why doesn't it match Dr. Fukino's description that she gave just 16 days before this birth certificate was released? Is it possible that the document changed from the time that Dr. Fukino saw it and the time it was published at whitehouse.gov? Now let's look into some of the statements made by Hawaiian Governor Neil Abercrombie. On December 24th, 2010, he told the LA Times, "Maybe I'm the only one in the country that can look you right in the eye and tell you I was here when that baby was born." But the same day, he admitted to the New York Times that he had not been at the hospital, but said he did remember the couple bringing the baby to social events. On January 18th, 2011, Neil Abercrombie said that there was a recording of the birth in the state archives. It was actually written. It actually exists in the archives, written down. Now, he didn't even say there was a birth certificate on file, just that there was a written record. Then, on January 20th, he said he was going to search the archives to discover definitive evidence that Mr. Obama was born in Hawaii. On April 27th, when the birth certificate was released, Neil Abercrombie said, "We have found a way." Let me say that again. "We have found a way, once again, to confirm what we already knew. The president was born here in Hawaii."
This next item, no show business, but I have a personal interest, so I thought I'd share it with you. Former U.S. Congressman from Hawaii, Neil Abercrombie, has been a friend of mine for decades. In fact, when I first met Neil, he was driving a cab in Honolulu. Well, Neil and I spent a lot of time together in Washington, D.C. during Obama's inauguration. Neil told me then that he was going to run for governor of Hawaii. He had had enough of being a U.S. congressman. He also told me that the stories that he told me many times after Barack became famous, that when he was in college, going to the University of Hawaii, he was a friend of Barack Obama's dad. And he remembers Barack Obama as a little kid. He used to call him Barry. In fact, I did a TV interview with Abercrombie at C-SPAN the day after the inauguration, and we had to stop twice because he referred to the president as Barry. But after he did, he said, I got to call him Mr. President. Well, Neil promised me that when he became governor, he was going to cut through all the red tape. He was going to get Obama's birth certificate once and for all and end the stupid controversy that he was not born in the United States. Yesterday, talking to Neil's office, Neil says that he searched everywhere using his power as governor at the Kapiolani Women's and Children's Hospital and Queens Hospital, the only places kids were born in Hawaii back when Barack was born. There is no Barack Obama birth certificate in Hawaii.
Really?
Absolutely no proof at all that he was born in Hawaii.
Wow.
Now, he went out, he loves Obama. I mean, he purposely did this to get rid of that question. Now, got some egg in the face. I mean, now he admits publicly that there is no birth certificate.
Well, and Mike, the addendum to that is there's this story of there was a birth announcement, but it's been explained his grandparents could have called the newspaper and said, hey, our grandchild was born, And he didn't have to be born in Hawaii for that. So it's raising the issue again.
Absolutely.
After it seemed to be put to bed.
And I asked him, I go, well, when do you remember Barack? When you first remember it? And he goes, I remember him playing like in a T-ball league. And I go, like, well, how old? He was like 5 or 6, something like that. I go, what about before that? He goes, I don't really remember him much before that, which I thought was very odd.
Really?
Anyway.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
According to our federal law, and I don't know if it's constitutional law, but I assume it would be, why is he allowed to be the President of the United States then if he can't prove he's a U.S. citizen?
Well, that's
born
a
here.
big question.
I don't know. That's weird.
And now Abercrombie is the first to say that he, although he is Abercrombie is a Obama lover,
Right.
that he's concerned that this is really going to be an issue during the re-election.
So it has taken off as a big story again.
Yes.
Well, and what's interesting about it is this guy attacked people who questioned that he was born in Hawaii just a few weeks ago.
Neil did.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm telling you, Neil and I are buddies, and during this whole inauguration, when I was in Washington for those 10 days, spent a lot of time with Neil, and anytime anybody come up and bring this up, you're right, Neil is almost militant about it. I remember him as a kid, he was from Hawaii, born and raised in Hawaii. So, needless to say, I think he was probably shocked more than anybody with the whole
I
thing.
mean, don't you have to produce papers that say, in fact, you were born in the United States?
So, wouldn't you?
You'd have to.
Well, there's been a certificate of live birth, but that's being questioned too, because you don't have it. It's not the official birth
There has to
certificate.
be one at the hospital signed by the doctor verifying a birth, but there isn't that. It's like a baptism papers. It's not worth the paper it's written on, really.
Well, Mike, how hard would it be to go back and find out what doctors were on then? You know,
Well, apparently he can't find any of that.
And what about Hawaiian Deputy Attorney General Jill Nagamini? Didn't she verify that what Barack Obama posted at whitehouse.gov was his authentic birth certificate? No, in fact, she refused a law enforcement request to authenticate the long-form birth certificate posted on whitehouse.gov. It should also be added that she's married to the lawyer who handled Maya Satoro's divorce, that she initially refused Ken Bennett's request for verification. Mr. Bennett is the Secretary of State in Arizona and has represented the AG's office in all birther-related matters.
Maya Satoro is Barack Obama's half-sister, just to put it in perspective for you.
And what about Hawaiian State Registrar Alvin Onaka? Did he not verify for Ken Bennett, the Arizona Secretary of State, that the long-form birth certificate posted at whitehouse.gov was legit? Let's review that in detail. Ken Bennett, the Secretary of State of Arizona, sent the following message to Jill Nagamini. Please verify that the attached copy of the certificate of live birth from Mr. Obama is a true and accurate representation of the original record in your files. Jill Nagamini wrote back, my client stands willing to provide you with the verification you seek as soon as you are able to show that you were entitled to it. The verification that Alvin Onaka eventually sent Ken Bennett didn't specifically verify the birth date of Barack Obama. It did not verify that the attached copy was in fact exactly what Hawaii had given President Obama's attorneys at Perkins and Coie, but stated only, I verify that the information in the copy, let me say that again, the information in the copy of the certificate of live birth for Mr. Obama that you attached with your request matches the original record in our file. It's also worth noting that he had a subordinate initial his signature stamp, meaning that he did not actually provide this verification of live birth. Consider the unusual wording that Hawaiian officials have used when asked to verify the authenticity of the long-form birth certificate posted at whitehouse.gov. I have seen the original vital records, said Dr. Fakino. It exists in the archives, written down, said Governor Abercrombie. We found a way to prove said Neil Abercrombie. And finally, I verified that the information in the copy of the certificate of live birth for Mr. Obama that you've attached with your request matches the original record in our files. Alvin Onaka, State Registrar. Why won't anyone in Hawaii simply come out and say, yes, that long-form birth certificate posted at whitehouse.gov, that is exactly 100% what we have in our files. Some valid questions for Hawaiian officials include, why couldn't Neil Abercrombie find a document in 2011 that Dr. Fukino claims she found in 2008? Furthermore, why did Dr. Fukino, the former Hawaiian Director of Health, describe the document incorrectly as half written and half typed just 16 days before a certified copy was purportedly released by Barack Obama and posted at whitehouse.gov? And again, why won't a single Hawaiian official just come out and say, the document posted at whitehouse.gov is exactly what we gave Judith Corley of Perkins and Coie? Typically, the two pieces of evidence most often thrown up as proof that Barack Obama had to have been born in Hawaii are two birth announcements, one in the Honolulu Star Bulletin on August 13, 1961, the other in the Honolulu Sunday Advertiser, which was also published on August 13, 1961. It should be noted that these announcements were taken from the Hawaiian Department of Health rolls. They are not proof of a hospital birth. They are not proof of a Hawaiian birth. Many Japanese children born in Japan also appeared in these same two newspapers' birth announcements. They are only proof that someone reported a birth to the Hawaiian Department of Health, and nothing more. The American people have been presented a PDF file of Barack Obama's purported birth certificate and a handful of photographs to support the claim that Barack Obama Sr. and Stanley Ann Dunham are Barack Obama Jr.'s biological parents. Absent the original record, there is no proof of this claim. Without a doubt, the state of Hawaii is the easiest place in America for a foreign-born child to obtain a U.S. birth certificate and therefore U.S. citizenship. Note the shocking information in this letter sent from George Ewan, who on March 1st, 1982 was the director of the Hawaiian Department of Health, to a state representative named Herbert Sagawa, who was the chairman of the House Committee on Health in the Hawaiian state government. Dear Representative Sagawa, this bill would require the Department of Health to issue birth certificates to children born or adopted anywhere in the world if their parents were legal residents, not citizens, residents of the territory or state of Hawaii and paid income taxes in Hawaii at the time of their birth or adoption. Then Mr. Ewan goes on to ask for more resources to handle what he believes will be the flood of incoming requests for birth certificates. It should be noted that House Bill 3016-82 did pass and become law. The subject of birth certificates can be rather confusing in Hawaii, where they issue 4 separate types. A certificate of live birth is a long form. A certification of live birth is a short form. A certificate of Hawaiian birth was something they stopped issuing in 1972, and they also issue something known as a late certificate of birth. To suggest that Hawaiian law is rather lenient when it comes to the preparation of birth certificates would be an understatement, to say the least. Note that if a child has an unattended birth, meaning a birth that is not attended by a midwife or a physician, and the parents are unable to file for a birth certificate, anyone having knowledge of the birth may do so. The missing pieces of the puzzle may be completed in a supplementary report, and once that report has been submitted, the birth certificate is not considered delayed or altered. Hawaii's lax laws on birth certificates should be a concern. They've in fact not only set themselves up to provide Hawaiian birth certificates to people not born in Hawaii, but they are in effect also giving out U.S. citizenship in the process. It should be noted that in September of 2000, an Inspector General report noted that birth certificates are widely used to obtain citizenship falsely. Virtually all federal and state agencies agree that fraudulent birth certificates are used as breeder documents to obtain the genuine documents needed to create a new identity, and that fraudulent birth certificates are easy to obtain. After reviewing the evidence, we must conclude that Barack Obama does not have a single document supporting his life narrative that is not riddled with problems.
We're going to run out of time here, so we can make a choice. We either take questions or I can show you the selective service card. Yeah, I think you need to see that. Let me just make one statement here. That Inspector General's report actually goes on to say that you cannot take a birth certificate and use it as verification of identification or citizenship. It has to be done with other supporting documentation. To date, the only thing Mr. Obama has ever produced is his PDF file. All his other records are either sealed by order or sealed because law says you need his permission to access them. So you can't follow the trail. And when I told you yesterday that he couldn't pass a background check to get a job in the sheriff's department, I wasn't kidding. He couldn't. As a matter of fact, we checked with the federal government, and a janitor is put through more scrutiny than the President of the United States. This is a very, very troubling scenario. And this could have been easily rectified by him putting his birth certificate behind bulletproof glass in the Department of Health of Hawaii and show it to the world. The other thing you want to realize too is those birth certificates, they stay in a vault. And his birth certificate is supposed to be in a binder with 499 other birth certificates from that time period in 1961. It should have taken 37 seconds to pick up the phone as the governor and say, give me a copy of that guy's birth certificate. All right, they claim it was there, but then they can't find it. The fact that a document was in the National or the State Archives means it was out of the chain of custody and control of the Department of Health in Hawaii. That purported written record has never seen the light of day. We don't even know if that really happened. You can look at the inconsistent statements that these people are making, and if this doesn't scream lying cover-up to you, turn in your badge, because it does. It really does. You have a situation here where after the presentation of his long-form PDF, the Director of Health in Hawaii took that volume of 499 other birth certificates and secreted away in a different locked cabinet with limited access. Now you have to ask yourself a question. It sat there for 50 years, right? Unmolested for 50 years, and he secrets it away. I guarantee you, if we could get our hands on that book, we're going to find that that book was unbound, a document placed in, and rebound. And we know that glue isn't going to be analyzed to be 50 years old when they do it. The microfilm, like Sheriff Arpaio has been saying from the beginning, would solve all this. But at this point in time, I don't trust anything. Those one-liner birth announcements are nothing more than a recorded event. Hawaii's laws are so screwed up that anybody could go in, claim a birth took place, and they are compelled to file a certificate. Going back to the beginning of Hawaii, there was a black market for birth certificates from Japanese citizens wanted U.S. citizenship. They were being sold by a syndicate underground. It's not uncommon for this to happen. Getting a birth certificate in Hawaii is relatively easy. Now, that actually, as far as Sheriff Arpaio was concerned, Hawaii is like the newest border state. Because when you have a birth certificate, you can go anywhere in this country. You can just about anything, a driver's license, a taxi license, a handgun permit, Social Security card, benefits. We believe the state of Hawaii was enjoying a per capita gain for people not living there, just issuing birth certificates, and they would get aid from the federal government as a new state. It was all about money. Governor Abercrombie is inconsistent in his statements. If he couldn't find it, how did it miraculously appear? Let me hit you with the Social Security card. This will only take about 4 minutes.
Mike, real quick.
Yes.
At 11, are you going to be doing the same presentation or different?
No, it's going to be a lot faster, but it's got more in it. It's information that I cannot disclose to the public.
And is it right here?
It's going to be, I think D. I think D is the rule they gave me.
Was Barack Obama's selective service card really received by the post office on July 29th, 1980? What exactly is the concern with Barack Obama's selective service registration?
This is at my desk in my living room. We secured that Pica stamp handle from 1960. I won't tell you how we got it. We secured a pica date set. There are no 1980 pica date stamps out there. That is a blow-up of what Barack Obama's date stamp looks like.
We reviewed multiple Selective Service registration cards. These are just 4 examples. Notice the date stamps on all 4 contain 4 digits for the year-decade marking. This is a copy of the date stamp from Barack Obama's original Selective Service registration card that was made available for public review. These photographs illustrate a standard pica stamp that was used during the 1980s era. The photograph on the upper right shows the pica stamp compartments and stamps that needed to be changed out daily, monthly, and yearly. The picture on the bottom right is an example of a loaded pica stamp. These 5 examples are the expected results from the pica stamp used by the United States Post Office. Per the United States Post Office, it is policy to use a stamp that contains 4 digits for the year. The stamp below is Mr. Barack Obama's, and it contains only 2 digits for the year. Why? This photograph shows a pica 2008 year stamp and a pica 80 stamp. Since there are no 1980 pica year stamps available, the 2008 was cut between the 2 zeros and inverted. This inverted cut stamp creates a similar effect, which closely resembles the one seen in Barack Obama's Selective Service registration card. This illustration shows what the 2008 pica stamp looks like when cut in half and then inverted. In conclusion, as you can see by looking at the side-by-side comparison below, there is a clear difference between the authentic stamp shown on the right and Mr. Barack Obama's on the left. Look at the distance between the 0 and the innermost circle of the stamp. Look at the distance to the right of the 0 and beneath the 0. The reason the numbers 8 and 0 are out of position on Barack Obama's registration card is because when the numbers 08 were cut away from the year 2008, they were not cut squarely. Or perhaps put another way, the person who cut them cut too close to the 0. So when 08 was turned upside down to become 80 and put back into the pica stamp, it pushed too far to the right. In what is becoming a clear pattern for documents that are essential to the documentation of Obama's life narrative, the Selective Service card isn't just forged, it's poorly forged.
I created that in my own living room. And I got to tell you guys, I gasped when I stamped it for the first time. I go, oh my God, I just made this thing. That's what they did. There's no doubt in my mind. In addition, what we didn't put in the video, they severed the top of the 80. So you couldn't tell that it was inverted because the bottom is not as wide as the top, and they inverted it. So they had to conceal that fact. It also should be noted that Mr. Obama was part of groups in college that protested that foreign students in colleges shouldn't register for Selective Service. So the chances of him doing that, I think, are pretty nil. This also surfaced after he was on a talk show and somebody asked him about it. All of a sudden, this thing was produced. This was produced by a Freedom of Information Act. I'm going to leave it to you. And this by no means is everything that we have, but this is what we could share with you, and I think it's compelling. Am I wrong? Nobody's telling me I'm wrong. Sir?
What about the certificate in Kenya that showed up?
We don't believe that to be accurate at all. As a matter of fact, I have an affidavit from an individual who worked in Kenya that I don't remember the date, but sometime right around this was all surfacing. They sent in some jackboots, some kind of military police, and seized Kenyan birth records from 1958 to 62, is what the affidavit says. Did that happen? I don't know. But I have an affidavit for what it's worth. So I don't know what the deal is. We actually went to the National Archives. There was speculation that the birth date of August 4th was not the true and accurate birth date. We went to the National Archives and we wanted to see if there were manifests from Pan American or TWA at that time from flights that could have happened from Kenya to Hawaii. We were told that those did not exist. However, they had INS cards that everyone was required to fill out. We said, great. They copied for us something like 690 rolls of tape. This is microfilm. We sent researchers down there. They get to the birth month and year of Barack Obama's, and from the 1st to the 10th is gone. No explanation. They can't figure out what happened. And when we went back to talk to them again, they lawyered up. So I don't know. I just don't know. So there is no evidence of anything. And I want to leave you with this one thought, if there's something that you take away with this. Something that this seems to be very repetitive in this administration is we tell you, you believe it. We show you one little piece of information and we build an entire scenario around it. All you know is you are being told that Barack Obama Sr. is the father and that Stanley Ann Dunham is the mother. And you're shown some photographs and they're telling you who the players are in those photographs. We have INS records where they were looking at Barack Obama Sr. He wanted to extend his visa. Harvard University did not want to do that. He was caught going around to high schools soliciting young women. They wanted him gone. He came up with the story, maybe true, maybe not, that he was married to Stanley Ann Dunham and she was pregnant. The INS investigators questioned this and thought to themselves that this was a sham and he was just trying to extend his visa. Now, we don't have time to go into more, but I can tell you more about this narrative as it starts to crumble. What you get with this is typical creation. You get a little information, and when you start to pursue it, it falls apart. Or you can't pursue it further. And according to the federal government, there's no vetting of an American president, there's no vetting of a presidential candidate. It is done by the Constitution, which we know they are trashing. It is done by the loyal opposition, which is setting out the narrative, and the other side really didn't do much with it. And it is done by the media. Now you know why we're where we are. Had this been, and not to be political about it, but had this been roles reversed, I mean, look what they tried to do to George Bush, and those are fraudulent documents. So if you guys could just quickly kill the feeds, I really don't want this recording. And make sure you're not taping me with your cell phones, guys.